Welcome to the Empower Network webinar with Ann Wisdom talking about sustainable business practices, how to move forward a little every day and still hold space for life's challenges. Before we get started, just a few accessibility notes. First, closed captioning and a transcript of the presentation are available if needed. The slides and handout are linked in the Discord channel for Empower Network members. Please let us know if you have any accessibility challenges and we will do our best to accommodate them in future webinars. The views and opinions expressed in this webinar are those of the speaker only and do not necessarily reflect the official position or policy of the Empower Network. Speakers participate in their own individual capacity as representatives of their own businesses or organizations. We are incredibly grateful for the generous donation of their time and expertise to support our organization and our members. This webinar is sponsored by Verizon Digital Ready, a platform designed to support small business owners learn critical business skills at their own pace. Participants in the platform have opportunities to apply for grants throughout the year. 50 participating small businesses will be selected to receive a $10,000 grant. Applications close December 10th, 2025. Please use the QR code on your screen or the link in the description to sign up today and start learning. And lastly, the content of this webinar is for informational purposes only. Please reach out to the appropriate licensed professionals in your area if you need professional assistance.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm very excited to be here. And like Stephanie said, I am not necessarily an identifying member of your community, but in corporate America, we always preached that you should join a club that's like-minded and then join a club that can teach you something. And so I am just thankful that you guys have welcomed me here today. And this is the power of 1%, creating sustainable rhythms to support you and your business. And so, a little introduction to me, just for fun. We'll start with that because we can talk about business and have a good time as well. I was born and raised in Kansas City. That is where Stephanie and I met. I spent a lot of time in Atlanta, actually. I was there for the '96 Olympics, if that just dates me a little bit. And my sister lives there now. My mom lived in Fort Lauderdale for many years. So, I've spent just time going back and forth to those cities. I love trying new things around Kansas City. And if you just put a destination in front of me, I am ready to go. Doesn't matter where it is, 45 minutes north of the city, I am there. But Kansas City is my home base. And then just because she's my business partner, my best coworker ever, there is Bella, my Frenchie, and she's a rescue. And so she's super shy and very adorable, as you can tell. Um, Early years. So the other picture that I had, I just couldn't put all dog pictures, even though I could fill up the screen there. I'm a shy girl turned into a leader somehow. I attribute team sports like basketball and even Girl Scouts to sort of just blossoming that inside of me. I am a math lover. I tried to be a little easy on the formulas today, just so we can take things slow and steady. And I love predictability, which it doesn't take much to get to know that about me. First job in high school was a corporate admin. So from early on, I was working in corporate offices, didn't know really what I was doing, asking for more things than simply filing, and just sort of made a career out of that. The picture you see on the middle of the screen is me on the research and development form. I was a youngster back then, as my grandparents would say, maybe sixth grade, getting a trophy. I'm sure it was for math or science related. And then, like Stephanie was saying, just a little bit about my corporate experience. I have an MBA from Rockhurst. That is a well known college here in Kansas City, Missouri. I manage revenue cycle, is the official term for bridging the gap between finance. Like I said, like looking back at my career, I wrote my first SOP at 18 years old. Again, really didn't know what I was doing, which was probably beneficial for me at the time. I worked in mostly healthcare throughout my career, so was managing admin offices, physician groups, trying to make a comprehensive intake sheet so that we could diagnose radiology appointments with more precision. And of course, you all know, being sort of related in the hospital and the healthcare industry, how important that is today. So that is a little bit about me. Before we jump into things, I really just wanted to get to know about you. Stephanie has invited me to the threads, and so I've been able to join and just join some of the conversations that way. But I just wanted to know the audience that we have. And so, where on the spectrum do you reside at this current moment? Are you working for somebody else and maybe navigating that? Are you self employed, working fully for yourself? Or are you somewhere in between, perhaps looking to leave working for somebody else and thinking about self employed? So if you would just drop that in the chat, that is something Stephanie and yep, Stephanie, I know she is a coach and the head of Empower Network. So I know you are busy doing it all. And I know some of you else are self-employed on the call because I saw some of my friends join as well. And this really does work. The techniques that we're going to drive today and talk about really does work for anyone on the spectrum. And it's really more about just getting to know yourself and how to navigate. And I know we've got unemployment, currently unemployed, and really you guys are joining and self-employed as well. You're joining a lot of Americans right now, right? There's uncertainty, there's a lot of flux going on, and that does create a space in the economy where more businesses are started. And we will talk just a little bit about navigating that together. And just always, I'm in a favor of collaboration. So if it's not going directly to self employed, there is an in between that we all can consider. Okay, we're going to talk about sustainable practices. And I love this because as I was, tweaking this and just sustain plus able, that's sustainable, right? So I hope every time you see that, breaking the word down really is helpful. So the prefix means to hold up or to support. And we could stop there and end the session and say we all are in need of that, especially when you're hurting and you're in transition and you really have uncertainty of what's next, right? The suffix means capable of being. And we all know deep in our hearts that we are capable, whatever we set our minds to. I know there are limitations, and this is a marathon. This is a long term journey to getting to where we all have arrived because really, we never really arrive. So it's just tweaking and iterating and really supporting ourselves during the process. So it literally means capable of being supported and capable of being maintained. So those are new words, supported and maintained, that we just added, that we want to be mindful, that we want to continue in that spirit. So support ourselves and create sustainable, maintainable systems. We want to do this in our lives, in our families, and in our business. So, from yourself, creating sustainability so that you feel in peace and harmony with our families, of course, that is a huge priority. Just making sure that there's balance, and that takes priority over our businesses sometimes. Stephanie and I have been working long enough that we've just sort of gotten to ride the waves of life. And I say it's feast or famine. And so just know there are things that take priority with our businesses, and we all can relate to those. What we need to do is find our pacing zone. That is the zone, right? We're not talking about stretch goals. We are really just talking about sustainable practices that help nurture and feed our souls and our goals. So, for the purpose of this conversation in today's lesson, we are going to talk about sustainable being to be continued at a certain rate for an extended period of time. Now, that doesn't mean today, tomorrow, this week. That means really setting legacy of habits that we can lean into and refer back to when, again, we have uncertainty. It also can refer to practices that do not deplete natural resources or cause damage. So we've all heard that term burnout, right? We're not trying to deplete ourselves. And when we are depleted, we are trying to know what to do and have those foundations set so that we can really help nurture ourselves and get us back to where we can do the next thing. As we get started, and I want to just apologize and just encourage you to join with me. Sometimes when we all have to close our eyes and think about things, it gets a little weird, but we are all sitting in hopefully a private, safe space. So just journey with me as we do this. So we're going to do a little visualization exercise. Honestly, you don't even have to close your eyes because you can think without doing that. But if you wanted to close your eyes, our little brain, right? Is closing its eyes. And so I want you to think of a favorite memory or like your most favorite fantasy destination vacation, right? So, as you're thinking about that, right, you're going to bring in those five senses. So, of course, what are you seeing? Because that is maybe one of the first ones that you can think about, right? So, what are you seeing? Where are you? What are you feeling? What's the temperature? What clothes are you wearing? Are you on the beach where it's warm? Or are you in the mountains where you need a jacket, right? Or are you on skiing where you need full gear? Um, are you what are you smelling? I will say I just got to go to the new Margaritaville hotel and it smells like suntan lotion right when you are able to enter their property. So again, what are you smelling? And then what are you hearing? Are there favorite noises? Is the ocean there? Are there rowdy kids there? It could be a family vacation. Or are you simply at home in your favorite cozy nook with a book and a cup of tea and blankets upon blankets upon blankets? I'm probably describing where my favorite place is. And so we really just want to know. Where that place is, because that is going to become something that we will refer back to. And if you can, I gave away some, just drop some words maybe in the chat to describe either that memory, that place, or how you're feeling. What does that invoke in you when you can kind of calm yourself and go to that favorite place, either mentally? For me, again, it gives me a calm, it gives me a peace, it gives me a break, it gives me just something where I can, again, channel something different. And so, usually, words we hear about are calm, peaceful, happy, excited, um, restful, mindful. So, all of those words, comforted. So, we want us to be able to feel safe in this environment that we've created. And this is your happy place. So, we are going to refer to this happy place several times during this presentation. And we want to make sure, and what's good about this also is you can have multiple happy places, right? And so, we want to just make sure that these memories are top of mind for us to refer back to when we need to call upon them. Okay, let's talk about our little friend, the brain. The brain is the most powerful part in the human body. I think we probably all have heard a little bit about the brain and how it functions. It really is the central command that controls and coordinates all bodily functions. So, thoughts, emotions, movements. So, I always think thinking, feeling, and doing. Those are sort of the trifecta of what the brain is signaling to the rest of the body. Our central nervous system, right, is what allows us to feel. So you can feel that in your body. Maybe you're getting nervous and your heart rate is rising, or maybe you've done some breath exercises and you're actually calming yourself down. You can feel that. The ice plunge is the newest rage, right? And so again, not that we're gonna all get together and do that, but that is sort of shocking that central nervous system. I will tell you, if you want to experience that, you can simply just put your hand in ice cold water and get the same technique. So it does not have to be by submersion for that. So there you go. And as we know with our emotions, they can't always be trusted. They are good signals, and we cannot rely and trust on them all the time, every second. So let's train our brain to help us out when we're feeling a certain way and we can't regulate via an ice plunge. I love it. I saw on a beach in New Zealand. I'm trying to monitor the comments just a little bit. So thank you for sharing that. We are all there with you in our happy place. And that's just perfect timing because we're going to train our brain to go to that happy place when we need to calm ourselves and also train our brain on what are the proper things to do to get us back into a productive state of being. So, like we said, it's the most complex organ in the body, 100 billion. What does that mean? With countless connections, right? So, if there's 100 billion nerve cells that are all interconnected, I'm sure there's a math project there that's probably above my pay grade. And that's why we just say there's really countless connections of what your brain is doing today, even as we speak, right? Vital functions, we talked about breathing, heart rate, body temperature regulation. Some of these things that, of course, we notice at some times, but some of them we do just naturally without really that cognition. Adaptability, this is one in the last probably 10 years that we've heard a lot about. It's neuroplasticity, a big word if you've heard that, but it just means that we can create new neuro wavelengths that are based on habits that we choose. And so we can learn, adapt, and change based on experiences. And so that is really what we're honing in on today, and that consciousness of thought, right? So that's when we redirect our brain in a conscious way to go to a happy place so that we can enable higher functions like thinking, reasoning, personality, emotion regulation. Those things are conscious when we want to, again, purposely and intentionally guide the brain in a certain direction. Halt. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but if you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, we really suggest that that is your sign to pause, listen to yourself, bring to conscious awareness to your present being. So, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? Let's invoke those five senses. Maybe at that time, if you're going to have a good old conversation with a partner or a spouse and you're halted, please just pause. That is not the good time. Maybe go to your happy place, just sit and breathe and do those things. But if you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, we want to halt and really take recognition of the space that we're in. This is called liminal space. It means being present and accepting where you are and how you're feeling. And again, dealing with the reality of that. And it's okay to feel, and it's okay to have bad days, and it's okay to have frustrating moments and all of that. And we can recognize that. We just don't want to bask in that for too long. So, my friends, just as like we would talk to a houseplant or best friend, let's consider the habits we are building around how we talk and treat ourselves, right? We want that self love, that self care. We want to be a good friend to ourselves, even. When we say we would never talk to our best friend like that, we talk to our pets. Do you have that voice that you talk to your pet with? That is the same energy that we want to give to talking and treating ourselves. So, the premise that we're going to use for the rest of the presentation today is we overestimate what we can get done in a day and we underestimate what we can get done in a year. That is the good news. That means we can just breathe and pace ourselves and not over panic. So, with the Business with Wisdom framework we're going to use today, get clear, get focused, get going. This is how I teach most of my trainings. And so, we're going to use this framework really to hone in on those habits that we've been talking about today. So, getting clear, we're going to break up with noise and distraction. And we all are guilty of a few things and we come by it naturally, but your phone, okay? And the first time in a while I've been talking about this, and I did a presentation for a 10-year anniversary. And in 2015, the Apple Watch was invented. So 10 years ago. And what's interesting about that is it's not just the phone anymore. People literally have a computer on their wrist. And so we are so connected. And ants. We've got ants in our brains, which we'll talk about. So, number one, phone usage. 4 to 6 hours a day. People are checking their phone up to 144 times a day. Mindlessness. Maybe you need a quick dopamine hit, and that's good. You can find a cute little puppy video or whatnot, but we don't want to be in doom scrolling for hours and really doing things that aren't helping us. If it's increasing our stress and anxiety, if it's increasing the comparison trap, even within this environment, we want it to be a safe environment free of comparison because we truly are on, each of us are on our own journey. And then, of course, I'm a productivity girl. You see some numbers up here, but it can decrease your productivity by 40% just with notifications. So, number one thing is turn off those notifications. And as we know, when you go to your handheld computer, right, and do something, it can take up to 8 to 23 minutes to get back on task. So sometimes we are wasting that good amount just getting sucked into non-productive activities. Your phone is an asset, though. You have a computer in your hand. We can reward ourselves with breaks and to go to our phone again to liven ourselves up a little bit, but we want to proceed with caution. Ants are automated negative thoughts. Everybody has them and they can be rewired. So if we're going from crazy thoughts, we want to have predictable places we can go in our brain. And if we don't control these ants, they can become can lead to mental health habits. And so again, we don't need any help with ants. They're all crawling around in our brain, and we don't want to feed them and have them grow. So what does it look like? Perhaps you're feeling held back because you can't attend as many events or any events as your counterparts. Maybe you're mad at yourself because you didn't get that task completed that you needed to or that you wanted to, and that creates a little shame cycle. Maybe you're just in the space that you're still judging your own capacity and recovering time, because we know that if you commit to something and execute it even well, you might be down and out for a period of time after. What does it sound like? Maybe you hear people saying, I'm such a night owl, but I'm up at 5 a.m. every day. We have to take that with a grain of salt and not let that really affect us. That is not true. We all burn out. And so there is nobody in this world, I just promise you, that's sleeping 5 hours a day or 4 hours a day. We all need that rest. Maybe somebody's saying, sorry, I've been so busy. I haven't gotten back to you. Again, that busyness, that comparison trap. I try to be mindful not to answer in that manner, just because, again, we're all busy, right? We're all busy. We're all doing what we can to move our lives forward. And sometimes it could be just reminiscing. Remember that time. Maybe you weren't there. In general, I find myself on the good old days, the other side of the good old days when I join things. So it's like, well, nope, I wasn't there for that. And again, it can make you feel left out. It can make you feel isolated. And so again, we want to own that and then not trust that, and know that your community showing up to events like this is where you make those personal connections, and you do have shared memories with your community and with those, again, just in your circle of influence. So how do we combat these? Know your tendencies and know your triggers, right? So if you're gonna get just hurt or just feel left out, maybe unfriend or unfollow or snooze for 30 days. Love that feature and see how you feel. Know your triggers. And again, go back to that halt, go back to that happy place. That is where, you can find safety and security. Your narrative is speaking the loudest. So let's speak truth and facts and just uplifting to yourself. And we all can understand that given the limitations that we all may have, this is your identity, and it's not negative. And so it is a fact. I lead very objectively. So we don't want to spend a lot of time in the coulda, shoulda, woulda's, but just embracing it. And honestly, kudos to you all because you found this community that is supportive and really can be helpful to you in searching and seeking for that new identity. The sustainable practice is know your true north. Your flight is set in a year in advance, right? When you're a pilot and you're flying. So know where you're going, know your true north, know your destination. And whether that is just being true to yourself, whether that's just building sustainable practices, whether that's just supporting your family, whether that's not burning out in 3 to 5 years again, or even 6 months to a year, know your true north and just keep that as part of truly your makeup and your soul. And again, don't let anybody steer you off course from your true north. The remedy, just like with your favorite memory, keep your true north and that favorite memory with you at all times. So, how do you fill your day? We're going to talk about rocks, pebbles, and sand. And so, we want to make sure we're putting the rocks in first, the pebbles, and then if you have time, sand comes in next. And so, that is part of just building the structure that we'll utilize today. Your big rocks are your client follow ups, your current events that you're going to attend that might be strenuous for you. You want to just plan around those and any current deadlines that you have. We want to plan for those and give ourselves a long runway and leeway to get those done, and ask for flexibility when you're not going to meet that certain deadline, as that is something we all want to be mindful here in this community. And then also, I just say in general, think about income producing activities. At the end of the day, we want to pay the bills and we want to create a sustainable lives for ourselves. So that term income producing activities is how I address those things. Now we get focused, right? We're prioritizing, we're clear, we know the big picture, and we're focusing in on the urgent versus the important. And so a lot of times, and Stephanie and I laughed, and I saw on her threads, we talked about getting sucked into Canva, right? And so sometimes it feels like that's the urgent. I got to make all these images and do the things, but we want to just be able to step back and do the important as well. It is called the Eisenhower principle. And so you can look that up. It's a 4 quadrant method. I could teach about it. It's one of my favorites. And we want to be doing the important, not urgent things. And when we're able to create this space, when the urgent things come up, because we all know that they do and they will. I know Stephanie is working on those urgent things as, probably in real time. And we want to make sure that in doing the important always, that when the urgent comes up, we have the capacity to focus on that because we've created some of the space because we've always been focused on the important. Working in your business is not the same as working on your business. So just know we have to do both, but working in your business is not working on your business, which is more of the operational context, the strategy. So these sometimes are your pebbles when you have to work in your business. So think about those emails and those social media communications. Contrary to popular belief, I have seen people run successful businesses with very few social media communications. And so just know that you can run a business without that. Stephanie and I have talked about that a lot. Many of you on this call, just again, that is such a driver in our society. And it is okay if you are doing less is more. And again, sometimes we want to foster that email communication, but just make sure, again, these are the pebbles. So make sure you're not getting sucked into doing these always and prioritizing them over important things. Planning your week or your month, again, that is a pebble because we want to spend time planning and foreshadowing. That is the important, but again, just make sure you're not always in that planning mode. This is your girl here, organize notes and process my intake. I have a whole little process. And so I can easily get caught up in feeling that that is actually productive when I didn't make a client call or I didn't make a client connection. So we want to make sure just how you're framing your day. And some of us are just iterating on what we may want to do next. So you might be spending a little more space in the ideation, which is fine. So maybe, you are spending more time looking at Pinterest or building a Pinterest board or being on LinkedIn or on social media, really trying to hone in on your brand, your identity. That's great too. And so just know if that's the space that you're in, set that as a big rock. You can always put time limits and things of that nature, but we just want to make sure that we're focused and moving ahead. So zoom in. Macro, that is the broadest sense. So, again, when you talk about seeing the forest through the trees, when you're driving, you can always see the forest before you see the trees, right? All the tops of the trees. And that is the macro perspective. The micro perspective is that's probably working in your business. Those are those task driven things, right? Today, I just want to introduce one that doesn't get talked about a lot, but it's the mezzo. It's the in between, that intermediate. So this is really working on your business, building a new workflow, a client onboarding process, maybe setting your mission statement, your vision statement, working on some of these things so that when you're building your business, right, you know what to do on a day to day basis that's going to help move your business forward. So we're going to plan the work and work the plan. You'll hear me say that often, and create a routine that supports you. So, what does this look like? No matter what time of day I start, I do these things first. So, in your personal affairs, it could just be before you even get out of bed. Just check in with your body. How are you feeling physically, emotionally? Just do that. Even those five senses. Ask yourself, what am I seeing, thinking, feeling, hearing, touching? If you need to do a 5-minute meditation, a breathing exercise, again, if you just look out the window, if you have a beautiful window in your bedroom and just really need to just look out that window and take a deep breath. If part of that is giving your partner a hug, maybe they leave for work, maybe you leave for work before them, but just that embrace on a ritual, a routine basis. Or if you need to turn on your favorite tune, that works as well. From the professional side, if you're really sitting down to work, what is your habits, right? Open your office curtains. That's something I've shared I do every day. Make a cup of tea, light a candle. If you're going to do the dishes, you might as well, right? Light a candle. But in your professional setting, if you turn on a salt lamp or do aromatherapy, if you want to sit down and really just, again, do your reflection on yesterday and list out your top 3 priorities. And I'm going to surprise you here, but these are before you check your phone or before you just get into it and check your email. But so before we just start doing, we want to make sure we're getting focused. The remedy here is to understand that progress is a lattice, not a ladder. So we want to give ourselves time to grow horizontally, knowing that when the time's right and the sun's shining and all the things, right, we will hit that growth spurt. But also understand if you left corporate America, if you're in a flux position, that lattice just really gives you time on a horizontal basis just to maneuver through and create again to that next rung, that next stronghold that's going to give you the support and launch you into the next phase of your career. The sustainable practice, we talked about it, review, preview each day. We're going to talk about that pilot because before he even takes off, we are reviewing the flight plan. We know where we are headed to our destination. And now we get going. So we are going to take intentional and incremental steps forward. And I love these 2 words. This is what Business with Wisdom is built on, is intentionality and incremental steps. We've all heard of time blocking, which is setting aside a certain amount of time, but also we want to talk about habit stacking. So deciding which new methods to incorporate to enhance the productivity. So this is where we can create those new habits. In order to do something new, we have to give up something old. And I call this to my clients all the time, addition by subtraction. This is the sand. So, what can we stop doing and eliminate? So, researching and creating social graphics. We talked about that earlier. Do you get sucked in to social media or just Canva? Cleaning up your email. Is that your default where you just go in and start deleting a bunch of things, filing things? Are you always in ideation, working on that next shiny thing when really we just need to stop and complete what we've already started? And by the way, this time of year is the time to stop and reflect and not create new things. So, just know that again, getting things done and completed is better than a lot of projects going on at one time. So, what is something you feel you can give up to gain more capacity? I am trying to set specific times that I get on social media. And so I'll ask you to drop that in the chat if you have something that you think that you can give up to gain more capacity. Thank you, Stephanie. So while we read those, there is a rule called 1 in 60 rule. And this is where the power of the 1% comes. If pilots are off by even 1%, going from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., you will end up in the ocean. So the point of that is 1% is 15 minutes a day. Yes. And I love this, Jason. 8 hours. And thank you. You just said that. We cannot set a rule for ourselves that 8 hours is even a working day, right? We need to know what our limitations is. And so the power of the 15 minutes a day is 1% is just 15 minutes a day. So, Jason, instead of 8 hours, think about what I can do for 15 minutes. And hopefully that might just decrease the pressure for us to be on for 8 hours, 10 hours, working at 8 a.m., working at 8 p.m., around the clock, right? We want to be able to sustain and maintain that capacity. So we plan for the 1% and we build from there. If today is not the day, the work will wait. And so the good news is when you're feeling that way, this community is helping you resource. Call a friend, rest your mind or body. Remember that happy place. And maybe something that you can do as well is just breath work, right? Just stepping away, giving yourself some grace to really step away, have that liminal space, understand how you're feeling, and decide if you can get back to that 15 minutes, that 1%. So the remedy here is any progress, all progress is movement forward. It's progress and it should be celebrated. The sustainable practices here is recognize what you have capacity for and just do that one thing. And so pilots make in-air adjustments due to turbulence and changing weather. So it's on autopilot, and most of us are on autopilot. And so that's when we want to make sure those habits that we're building, that 15-minute span of time, is something that's not necessarily autopilot, but we're able to make those little manual adjustments based on turbulence or how we're feeling or circumstances of that day so that we can, at the end of the day, feel productive, whether that's a day off just because you needed the rest or because we did a 15-minute stretch activity and we're really proud of what we've accomplished. So back to the premise. We overestimate what we get done in a day, and we underestimate what we can get done in a year. So that's the good news, because 15 minutes is all it takes for that 1% progress. So you can do this. I hope this was helpful. I hope you've listened, or I hope you've gained a few techniques. What I really want to just encourage everybody on is that you can do this. And again, the power of the 1% is 15 minutes. So we are not intaking as much as to do as we can get accomplished. So make sure that you have that balance in your life. Reach out to a friend. Even in this community, guys, we want to support each other in our aspirations. And if it's not doing it alone, join somebody, join their business. I'm looking at opportunities where I can collaborate with people, share networks, collaborate together, because even building my business, I don't want to do it alone. So find commonalities within this community that can really support you and learn from each other. And so, if you like this, Business with Wisdom offers operational and financial frameworks. I really like to teach metrics and how to build your strategy, your system, and your team through really objective ways. So, not thinking, feeling, but more objectivity. So, how do we set goals? How do we hold each other accountable? And again, bake that grace in if we need extension, if we need. Any special circumstances, but I love to do workshops. I love to teach. I have virtual workshops and virtual worksheets on my website. I host networking events every now and then out in the community, and I do one on one personalized coaching. And so, two resources that I wanted to leave you with before we get to question and answers is I have a CEO starter kit that is a digital workbook that you can get on my website. And I'm big about cadences. So, this really does teach you a year and a glance of what it takes to be a CEO, some terminology, some frameworks, some tips and tricks. I teach an end of month process because if you can get in a cyclical end of month rhythm, a lot of other things fall into play. And again, we have people that are flirting with maybe starting your own business. What is next if you would start a business or a passion project? What does that look like? This is a great 30-day journal. You can get it today and have it completed by the end of the year. But it walks through different prompts and values and business principles that allows you just an inspirational quote and a question of the day to really put pen to paper on, again, if you were designing your own company, your own business, or not even that, but just what you want to do as your next vocation. This is a really great journal to help you get started. And so that is it. Thank you all for joining us today. And I will just stop and take questions either through the chat Stephanie and I are monitoring, or you can come off mute and ask them that way.
Thank you so much, Anne. That was really
Yes,
great. The one theme that I heard that I don't know that you said it exactly right, but
please.
it comes up often in the chronic illness community is that in a lot of entrepreneurship and CEO spaces, people like to say consistency is key, which ends up being a little triggering for the chronic illness and disability community because the one thing that we are 100% of the time is inconsistent, right? That's why we're not in our regular full-time career jobs, most of us in the first
Mhm.
place. And so what I really love that this is it's not really focused on consistency, but sustainability, right? Like knowing ahead of time, kind of having a game plan so that when you do have a couple good hours, that you're ready to leverage
Yes,
those in a way that really supports your business instead of just going back to the default, which some of us commented in the chat, right? That default is not, most of us are not business builders
right.
naturally. And so, kind of putting out that plan and making a system that allows us to really leverage the energy that we do have in an effective way. I just love that sustainability rather than consistency language feels just so much more empowering to me and so much
I
more
love that.
encouraging as someone who never knows on any given day if I'm going to have a really good day or if I'm going to have a day where I end up being stuck on the couch or in bed all day.
Yep. And that's when, again, maybe that day, and if you have to trust yourself, but maybe that in bed day is your vision casting day, right? Again, if you don't have capacity, that's okay. But if you still want to just have a pen and pencil with you, right? Or again, maybe that's the day that you can get lost. And I mean, there's a couple social media accounts that I learn a lot from, and I don't have time to get to them. So yeah, just trusting yourself, and any progress, all progress is progress, right? And so that's the good news.
A question that we got as people were adding questions in the registration was about networking, and specifically, how do you network when you have barriers to networking, right? So some of those barriers could be neurodivergence, right? Autism, or they could also be physical barriers. I mean, for heaven's sake, Anne and I were at a networking event this week. I don't know if you caught this, Anne, when we were there. The elevator wasn't working and it was on the second floor. And
Okay, I didn't know that.
I use a wheelchair for networking events. I can walk, but I'm an ambulatory wheelchair user. I can't stand around and talk. It would not end well. And so I use my wheelchair for those events. And I was stuck on the first floor for probably 20 minutes waiting for someone with a key card to figure out how to unlock the elevator,
Wow,
right? So
Stephanie.
there's some significant accessibility issues at networking events, right? Some of them are infection concerns. If you have an autoimmune disease, being in a public networking event in November when illness is really high
Hmm.
is just not a safe thing for people. So kind of building on Jason's point and then the question that we got in the chat or in the questions, how do you network if being physically present isn't a good choice for you? If being on social media isn't a good choice for you? What's the way that you can still build those personal connections in an alternative way?
So I think a couple things, and great question. And Stephanie, I did not know that experience. And so honestly, the one of the things that I admire so much about Stephanie is her bravery, to even just put yourself out there, right? And make your way alone on the plaza, when you know that you're going to have to go some type of distance and then encounter that. So you're brave, and everybody out there on this webinar is brave as well. So I do want to say that. And so it's a great question. There are virtual networking groups that you can attend. So that is a great way to an alternative to showing up in person. And also, that's a great way to expand your network because really, obviously, when you're in person physically, it's only just local, hyper local, right? And so that's one of the ways. I know you mentioned not social media, but another way on social media, and again, like LinkedIn might feel safer to you than some of the other ones. And if social media isn't safe for you personally, think about creating a business page. For me, just I'm not a social media person, but somehow I feel like I can teach and talk about business all the time. So I've created a business page that just makes me feel safer. And again, I can, sort of customize my connections that way rather than being on a highlight reel on my personal page. That's another option. And again, LinkedIn might feel safer to you than some of the other choices. The other thing that if you're just not wanting to post on social media, engaging people on social media. So again, if you have a couple networking groups, commenting, liking, now that Stephanie and I are in several online groups together, we're able to bounce off ideas with each other, which is always lovely. And that creates that camaraderie in a social media post. The other ways that I will say is emails. That really is emails and phone calls. So obviously in text messages. So text messages might be a way to start an entry level conversation as well. But email, you want to foster emails means that you've had a physical or, not a physical, but an actual interaction with somebody that you've exchanged information, right? So anybody on social media is really just following you. Others that have your email, again, you've had an interaction. So that is the community you want to foster mostly with tips, with tricks, with updates, with freebies, things of that nature. And again, emailing people offline, and maybe just not through a chain, but having, a direct conversation. So those are some other tips for networking if you don't want to go physically or just kind of temper with social media.
Thank you, Anne, for the generous donation of your time and expertise to our community today. This webinar has been hosted by the Empower Network nonprofit, a community of disabled and chronically ill people navigating employment and entrepreneurship together. Membership is $10 a month, and scholarships are available by application. If you'd like to get involved, please sign up for the newsletter and/or join us today. And thank you again to our sponsor for today's programming, Verizon Digital Ready, a platform designed to support small business owners learn critical business skills at their own pace. Join Verizon Digital Ready through the QR code or the link in the description to apply for your $10,000 grant.